Hey guys, RCAnime here.
Like, okay, look, there's RCAnime. There's these fucking YouTubers here.
Yep, that RCAnime who makes all those, or hasn't made any of those anime reviews in a while. Well, don't worry, I promise I'll get back into the reviewing game in the future when I watch a show that'll make me want to review it. Maybe Monster Musume. But before that day comes, I thought why not recommend 10 anime that I think have been overlooked, or the more common way to say it, 10 underrated anime. Though let it be known that this list isn't ranked, but just 10 random shows I think have been overlooked or have been turned away from due to whatever reason. So starting off the list, Tama by Studio A1 Pictures and director Kenji Nakamura, the director of other shows such as Kuchu Blanco and Gatchaman Crowds. A director known to deliver interesting and unique art styles to his shows, Tama is no exception. Probably his most overlooked anime, Tama blends amazing comedy and a creative vision that ultimately makes the show a fun ride, and I'm quite surprised by how unknown Tama actually is, since it's easily accessible for all audiences. Being a light-hearted adventure comedy series and arguably one of the best shows A1 Pictures has produced in recent years. Of course, that doesn't mean that this show doesn't have its own amount of flaws. The climax could have been handled slightly better, and a lot of the side characters may feel out of place as they're not given as much focus as they could have been, though the important thing about Tama is that it's a good time thanks to its likable cast and quirky atmosphere. Next on the list is another show by director Nakamura, Kuchu Blanco, otherwise known as Welcome to Irabu's Office, clearly proving Nakamura to be a very underrated director in the industry. Welcome to Irabu's Office offers one of the most unique and jarring takes on the comedy genre, mashing it up with plenty of psychological elements, and a wholly original art style which obviously blends live action along with animation, taking rotoscoping to a whole new level. The art style alone makes Welcome to Irabu's Office a memorable experience that's worth checking out. This show too, as all do, also has its own flaws. In some episodes, the psychological cases are treated overly lightly, and this isn't a show that'll provide you a fully conclusive ending, but even so, the show's exhibit of unusual directing methods makes this anime a must-watch. Kofu Graffiti is probably one of the most misunderstood shows on this list, as many regard it to be a boring moe slice-of-life show directed by the ever-so-controversial director Akiyuki Shimbo, but a majority of these arguments speak of the show on a very superficial level, as when you take a closer look at it, it's actually a very heartwarming story about a lonely girl who finds contentment in her life after befriending her cousin and classmate. Kofu Graffiti also does boost some fan service, but it's surprisingly not done in any way that disrespects the character, like Food Wars, but does it in a way to actually mirror the feeling that is the foodgasm, which does feel accurate since this is generally how people look in real life when they react to eating good food. Not to mention, Kofu Graffiti comes along with one of the best anime soundtracks I've ever heard, and beautiful art that is reminiscent of the usual Shaft production, but also being one that carries its own style and isn't tied down to being another anime that just looks like the Monogatari series. Summing it up, I think Kofu Graffiti deserves a second chance from its audience, because there are plenty of beautiful moments in the show that warm you up. Kyosogege is perhaps one of the best shows on this list, with spectacular, visceral directing by Rei Matsumoto, the director of Kekkai Sensen, and a very vibrant art style that never gets tiring to look at. And also, Kyosogege is one of the best anime out there to deal with the dilemma of a dysfunctional family, treating it with the heart of a classic Japanese fairy tale. The animation in the series is so fluid, and even has some wacky humor latched onto it, producing a beautiful dreamlike universe that continuously amps up in scale to the point where everything finally comes together. Not to mention, along with it comes a great soundtrack. And although in the beginning Kyosogege's fast pacing may seem a bit overwhelming, it shouldn't take long getting used to. Much like Tama, Kyosogege is a fun time, only with more well-developed characters and relationships, and should be enjoyable for anyone who's interested in checking this series out. Humanity Has Declined is perhaps one of the best comedy anime ever made, with hilarious political social commentary and satire directed by the usually dull Seiji Kishi, the director of Angel Beats and Danganronpa. He hasn't really had a very good track record when it comes to making a good, or at least an inspiring show. However, Humanity Has Declined is a completely different story, being his magnum opus thus far. Humanity Has Declined is easily his best effort to date, with actual interesting and comedic directing choices. Featuring a sarcastic and witty main female protagonist and campy dialogue, the anime produces not only great laughs, but intriguing ideas on human society, and how we've metaphorically have fallen as a community and species, continuously making fun of the many trends that humanity has continuously come across again and again. And it's extremely rare to see a comedy of any medium to really deliver more than just toilet humor laughs. Also, did I mention the famous bleeding bread meme comes from this show? Yeah, this show is pretty great.
さあ、どうぞお召し上がりを。
いらない。
Robotics Notes has unfortunately been continuously standing in Steins Gate's shadow due to their minimal connections to each other, and that's honestly disappointing. Robotics Notes is actually very different from Steins Gate. Besides the whole fact that there's a bigger conspiracy that envelopes all the characters together, ultimately Robotics Notes has a wholly different atmosphere than Steins Gate, which is why many people turned away from it when it aired. And while Robotics Notes may not be the most unique or exquisite anime in this list, it is really enjoyable, and carries out a superior climax to that of Steins Gate. Robotics Notes does have many flaws, as is occasionally tonally inconsistent, and the plot may be far-fetched, but I personally believe that it is on par with, if not much better than Steins Gate. Though, that's just me. The Tama Galaxy is a show that I'm actually very surprised to find out how little people have actually seen it. Directed by the highly regarded Masaki Yuasa, this is by far my favorite work by him from what I've seen of his so far. The Tama Galaxy follows a rather somewhat provocative cast through a Groundhog's Day-like timeline, as each episode resets to square one and features different events due to the results of the main character making different choices in the start of each episode. While this formula does start to feel a little repetitive after a while, the Tama Galaxy is still by far one of the most interesting anime I've ever seen, and is, in my opinion, Yuasa's best looking show in both aesthetics and animation fluidity. Featured in it is the occasional crazy comedy and ideas, and a romance that is treated unlike many other anime, looking into cases such as depression, obsession, addiction, and ultimately growing up in a shame society. In short, there's a lot to say about the Tama Galaxy, but I think it's an anime that's better to be watched than to hear other people talk about. So moving on. Aria the animation, and of course its two sequel seasons, Natural and Origination, is a fantastic slice-of-life series that, while though has a very strong cult following, not many anime fans, at least in the West, have actually seen it to my surprise. It's true that Aria does have a very slow pace and may not be the best show to watch right before you go to bed, but when you truly devote your time to this series, you will most likely be glad that you did. Aria presents an almost angelic world inspired by the city of Venice, which is really what makes the show stand out. It is very likely one of the greatest slice-of-life anime to have been made thus far, due to its grand setting and extremely likable cast. There's also an atmosphere in the show that many other slice-of-life shows have tried to accomplish but either never reached the level of Aria, or just failed completely. The balance between visuals and its truly amazing soundtrack just makes this anime series a journey much unlike any other, and left me with one of the greatest voids I've ever had, even ending up as one of my favorite shows of all time. Tamako Market, which is probably the most unexpected entry on this list, is another great slice-of-life series that, while it isn't even close to matching the grandness of Aria, is still a really good and enjoyable series. Now, many people turned away from Tamako Market due to its inferiority to KyoAni's previous slice-of-life hit K-On!, calling it a bland moe blob show. Not that calling something a moe blob show is even a valid critique of any sorts, but whatever. If you go into Tamako Market with an open eye, you'll likely be introduced into an actually very fun and light adventure. Of course, however, if you start comparing this show to other entries on this list such as aforementioned Aria or the Tama Galaxy, you would be watching this show with the wrong attitude, as this is just a show to watch to cool your brain off and have a lighthearted experience. Yurikuma Arashi, the most recently premiered entry on this list, is a great series directed by my personal favorite director Kunihiko Ikuhara. I was actually really shocked to see how the show has been initially received. And while I do think that Yurikuma is probably a show that will gain respect as time passes on, I still think it deserves to be on this list. The subject matter may not be the most original when talking about Ikuhara's work, but it's still an interesting anime to watch, and since I've already spoken about Yurikuma enough times before, I'll keep it simple with saying that the only major problem with the show is that it has a rather slow start and doesn't really pick up until near the halfway point. But I still think Yurikuma is easily the best show that aired in the winter 2015 season by a long shot, and may very likely end up as the best show of this year. Not Death Parade, because honestly, Death Parade was really shit.
Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
So there you have it, 10 shows that I think have been overlooked for you to check out, and if you've already seen all of these entries, then I really can't help you. Of course, there's plenty of other shows that deserve more exposure than what they already have, but that will be for another time and for another list. So what shows do you think are underrated? Let me know down in the comments, they might just appear in the next one. Also, don't forget to check out a new podcast I'm a part of called Roku Ronin, an anime podcast that tries out a new metagaming / Cards Against Humanity layout. And with that, I'll see you later.